Welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports, everybody. I've got my friend here, Jurgen Coney from the Off the Ball Network. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a nice football Sunday. Been slow so far, but in about an hour's time, action's about to pick up.
Yeah, so we're here. We're here to preview the AFC and the NFC championship games. They're going to start here in about an hour. Just going to do a quick preview to kind of get you revved up, a little pregame show, if you will. If you can't tell, I just did my Buckeyes podcast, so it's kind of a doubleheader day here for Jeff Needs Sports. So we'll start with some opening thoughts on the game. So let me ask you, which of these games are you more anticipating? I won't say excited for. Which of these games are you more anticipating, Jurg?
I think it's got to be technically the AFC Championship game, just because the injury to Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not even the upper body one. I don't know really what to call it, because a lot of reports coming out that it may more be of a neck nerve thing than an actual concussion. But
Right, right.
I've heard a lot of like solid arguments about the fact that the how much will his toe injury impact what the Chiefs do offensively, in terms of like such a big part of their offense is that Mahomes can move and hold the ball and scramble around. It gives the receivers much more time than most regular
And it
offenses.
only takes a couple plays for that to make a difference. I think you bring up a great point. That's what gets lost in this. Like, no, Mahomes is not a running back at quarterback. He's not. But if it's one play, if it's third and long and he escapes and that turns into a touchdown, that's a huge momentum swing in a game. So I agree with you. I think, and if it's a turf toe, that doesn't get better through the week. I mean, anybody,
Right.
any kind of, I don't care if you're what sport you do, if your feet are aching, hurting, you have an injury, like that's a big deal. And
Yeah.
I think that it's being underplayed. And if it's, how many times has Mahomes, like you just said it, almost been sacked and wasn't? Well, now if you're a step slower, you're sacked. And then
Yeah.
that sack turns into instead of you scoring, they score. Like these are huge momentum swings. When we've all talked about it for a few weeks here, Kansas City wins games by 4 points in the last 8 weeks. So if you tell me an injured Mahomes isn't worth, doesn't close that gap, I don't, I think you're kind of misleading yourself. But we'll get to the game breakdown here in a second. I'm looking forward to the battle of the Bays, Tampa Bay versus Green Bay,
Right.
only because I don't want to. I don't want to take lightly that we get to see two legends. Like we
Right.
know that we're seeing two legends of the game play, and they're both playing good.
Yeah.
This isn't like at the very end of the rope. One of them is fading, one of them is rising, kind of thing. This is two legends playing as good as they've played in the last 5 or 6 years, playing each other in the the hallowed grounds of Green Bay, Lambeau Stadium. This is what the game looks like. They both have good enough teams to win. Nobody's got a huge disadvantage here. So I'm really looking forward to the battle of the legends. One of these guys goes to the Super Bowl, and whichever one goes to the Super Bowl out of Brady and Rodgers is a huge story.
Yeah.
Like say, I've learned as I've probably maybe it's as I've gotten older to not, take this stuff for granted. Like we're watching legends. We know we're watching Hall of Fame, once in a lifetime players play, and I'm just trying. I'm really looking forward to that. So let's talk about that game first. That's the first game. It's at 3 o'clock today. Tampa Bay, Green Bay. So of course I'll ask you. I'll make it simple. Who do you got, and what is the biggest reason why you picked that team?
So I've heard some people like in both ways, trying to think both ways, that this game could end up being a blowout. I just don't see this game being a blowout because, like you said, Jeff, these are two so talented quarterbacks. I don't think either guy allows this game to stay a blowout. But I do have the Green Bay Packers winning this game, because I think, you know, it, and I heard this yesterday, not yesterday, on Friday actually, and I think this is a great mindset that like all teams have. Like whatever happened the week before, the month before, any time in the season, it doesn't matter anymore. A lot of people playing up the week 6 game between these two teams, I don't think is fair, because both these squads are so
Of
different.
a lifetime ago in football.
Exactly. So I don't think we can look at that game as a fair comparison to anything we may see here today. I have Green Bay winning just because I think their defense, the best defense that Rodgers has had there in years, has a legitimate shot at being the X factor here. And it can come at any of the three levels, really. you have a solid front seven in Green Bay, really. A couple different guys that can get pressure on the quarterback. Preston's and Zadarius Smith. Kenny Clark had a big game against the Rams. And Rashawn Gary, their former first-round pick as well. If any of those guys can get to Brady, it's going to be a big deal for Green Bay, because Brady this season, for passer rating and QB rating, it's bad when he gets pressured heavily. So there's that. And then I think at the end of the day, the defensive backfield of Jair Alexander, Kevin King, who is playing today. Report just came out, I think, like 15 minutes ago or so, that he'll be playing. And then Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. That defensive backfield is so good that Evans, Gronk, and Godwin, this may be arguably their most, next to the Saints game, it could be their most difficult game that they've had recently, because those are all very good defensive players. Jair Alexander, he's going to be put on either Evans or Godwin to slow them down. He's been phenomenal this season. If it wasn't for Jalen Ramsey, he would have been on the All-Pro first team. That's how good he was this season, legitimately. So I have Green Bay winning this one. Not by a blowout, I don't think in any way. I would say elite, potentially by a touchdown or so. But yeah, I got the Packers finally making it back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I like the Packers too. I'll piggyback on all the stuff you just said. Great observations about the defense is probably better than we think, which is typical with these teams. Like, we had a big discussion about it yesterday, about Green Bay's schedule. But once you start breaking down schedules in the NFL, nobody has a good schedule, because you play so many games, and there's the teams are going to average out. Everybody's schedule is going to average out to about the same. I like Green Bay. First of all, I think Rodgers is just, this is more because he's been in the same team, in the same environment and everything. He has less intangibles to overcome than Brady. And Brady's done a great job this year of molding this team into his team, and they are playing great right now. And for some of the reasons you said, I think they depend a little bit too much on, big passes over the top. And I think this Green Bay defense is a little better than that. Honestly, I think we both probably agreed that the Saints, if they have a full-powered offense last week, and maybe, instead of having 75% of Drew Brees, have the whole Drew Brees, I think the Saints are a little better last week. Not that, that's how football goes. I'm not one that thinks that Drew's arm was falling off. I think that his rib cage was crushed, and that had to affect that game. So when you can't take the top off the defense, it really shrunk that game. It tightened it up. And Rodgers can obviously do whatever he wants out there. And I think Rodgers' mobility, I know it's so hard to say anything against Brady because he's proven us wrong, 9 times or whatever. And it's insane. I understand. But you have to factor that in, that when it's not going to be a super cold day up there, but it's cold. Ground's a little hard. And, if I want to keep my quarterbacks upright, I think Rodgers has a little better chance of, like we talked about with Mahomes. If it's one play that makes a difference and he escapes and, can make that one huge play with the way Devontae Adams is playing, I think that's the difference. So if we're talking about a 3-point game, I just think that Rodgers and Adams at home, it makes that 3-point difference, even though I think Tampa Bay will play really well. Tampa Bay's defense has looked awesome, but the strengths of their defense, chasing down, like they say last week, Kamara and those short passes, that really played right into Tampa Bay's defense, as to where Rodgers can go deeper than that and start bringing the defensive backs and the safeties into it. So I don't think it's such an underneath game as it was last week. Like, we saw a good Devin White play, but when you also know that the quarterback's going to throw the ball 3 yards, that really helps. I mean, that's a real thing. They game planned against that, and it played right into their strength. So I have Green Bay, and I have it close, and I have a really good game. But I just think that Green Bay just has one more. I really think it's one more play, whether it's a 4th down that Tampa Bay doesn't get or a 4th down that Green Bay does get. I really think it's one play in this game, which obviously, everybody does too. Because -3, if anybody is into sports betting, -3 is essentially home field advantage. So they're calling this game a scratch game, and Green Bay is going to get -3 for playing at home. So, I'm with you, man. Right now, ESPN's chart 53% Green Bay. I think they're kind of saying the same thing. Like, we have but regardless, what's going to be cool is one of these two legends is going to make an historic play. Like, we're talking, these guys are just piling on top of trophies and Hall of Fame resumes. You know what I mean? Everything is icing on the cake. It's kind of like with when you watch LeBron James play basketball, everything he does now is just adding on to his legacy, not fortifying it. So
Absolutely.
I agree. So
Especially because Jeff, one thing I
yeah,
think when you mention of how legendary these QBs are, like this is a matchup for years people wanted in the Super Bowl. Now
yeah,
we're getting it in a conference
it's
championship
great.
game.
That's what I mean. I do not want to take it lightly. I want to enjoy every second of it because you're right. This is what we deserve. And you know what? Let me touch on this. We might as well talk about the elephant in the NFL room. Rodgers needs this. Rodgers
Right.
like I shouldn't say needs. I don't believe in all that, but I'm saying him if Rodgers wins this second, gets to and wins a second Super Bowl, what that changes as far as the narrative of his career is outstanding. As to where Brady can walk away right now and he's leaps and bounds the most successful player that we've ever seen in the NFL. So
Yeah.
if we want to do the personal stuff like a lot of people like to, this is huge for Rodgers. Does Rodgers care? We don't know. If it's fourth quarter and he's down 10, we've seen Rodgers teams lay down before
Right.
late. Does that happen, or does he fight through it and get to that? Because we brought it up last week when we had a big show. Green Bay always looks unbeatable until they lose, and it seems silly to say, but if you look at the games before Green Bay loses in the playoffs, they always look like the best team in the playoffs, and then they lose. You know what I mean? There's never like anything leading up to it. Like they don't squeak by and then lose. They always look so dominant, like last week,
Right.
and then out of nowhere they lose. So we have no idea what kind of Green Bay team is going to come out here. So okay, Buffalo, Kansas City. Oops, sorry, apologize. Buffalo, Kansas City, the second game, about roughly 6:00 tonight. It's supposed to kick off here. Okay, we'll do it again. Opening thoughts and why.
So a battle. Thankfully, a certain backup quarterback on the Kansas City Chiefs will not be starting this game. I know after this past week, I think you deserve to not hear that name today, at least from me. We got Mahomes and Allen going at it. You have Stephon Diggs going up against Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. These two defensive both have shown some flaws in these playoffs and throughout the regular season. This is a battle of two very good teams. And I think, after we saw the Steelers lose that undefeated start, I think a lot of people pointed to this being the likely AFC Championship game. If I got to pick, I think 3 is a relatively right number because I think this is going to be a very close game. I think, like you said, similar to Tampa Bay and Green Bay, I think this game is just going to come down to, and if not even one play, one decision that one of these teams make in a critical scenario where it's all in or all out at this point. Like the Super Bowl is on the line. You can't change your philosophy at this point into the season. So you just got to go for it if the opportunity is in front of you. Again, very slim margin. I just have Kansas City. It matters to me on the defensive side. These guys have done it before. Tyrann Mathieu, there needs to be a deep dive into how much he has meant to this Kansas City Chiefs defense since he's got there. Not just how they play, their attitude. Like attitude matters so much, and especially in moments like these. Yeah,
he plays basically a new position in the NFL, and he plays it well. That slot corner has become so important. He does a great job in there. I totally agree. Which is crazy. Before I get into my breakdown, you can't hear me if this is audio, but if you're watching, look at some of the stats. I mean, we're talking like these teams are the same. Nobody, like everybody knows how good Mahomes is. Yeah. Allen's had the same season. I mean, they're really neck and neck. Like 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but most of those interceptions were early. Allen's been on a run for weeks. I mean, some people could argue that, Allen's had a better season. If you look at what his team did down the stretch, it's amazing that we talk about how good Patrick Mahomes was coming off the Super Bowl last year, and then Josh Allen's hung right there with him this year as far as stats and everything and wins and. Just really amazing. I mean, look at that. This predictor's changing as we sit here.
Yeah.
Right now, if you can't see this, it's up to 61% believe Kansas City will win, which I watched this all year. These predictors, 61% is pretty high.
Right.
To put that in perspective, the last game was almost 50-50. So that is really high up on Kansas City. And I know Mahomes is playing. We already talked about the turf toe. I think that's a big worry. So I have Buffalo in this game. And the main reason why is that they're just I really, especially from doing the power rankings this year, I really try to forget about the team helmets. And if you do that, Buffalo's played better for 8 weeks. They've played better teams, and they've won. They've actually by is NFL standards, they've smashed everybody. Their average winning margin is in double digits, which is unheard of in the NFL, as to where Kansas City's, they've won every game, but average 4 points. And I know everybody says this, but it does matter that they know they've learned how to win. Week 17, they played a good Miami team that needed to get in the playoffs, and they tore them apart. They never let them breathe. Yeah. They played really good against the Ravens last week in kind of a bit of a not a great weather game. It was real windy. The Ravens were in the game, but they never really were. But Allen has found a way to close these games out. Like he makes big plays, and he's great in the red zone. His stats in the red zone are off the chart.
Right.
So he's learned to close games out, and that's why I think that they're the better team. I think I'll put it this way: whoever has to settle for a field goal in this game, and when I say settle, I mean are in the red zone and have to kick a field goal, I think loses this game. I think whoever settles for a field goal. Now, the one, X factor, I'll say, Travis Kelce's a bad matchup for Buffalo. Their defense is pretty good, but Kelce's, I don't know what you do with that guy. He's playing really good right now. Seems like he's always open. And when it's in the playoffs, and we've seen, Brady do it for years with his tight ends, when you can lean on a guy like this that you just can't cover, you can essentially just feed him and get a game out of it. Tyreek Hill is always an intangible. I mean, any play he can score, but I think Diggs is the same. I mean, I think,
right.
Diggs is the same type of receiver. We see at 127 receptions this year. Yeah. I mean, him and Allen are on the same page. Diggs can blow a game open too. I think, with all the talk about Tyreek Hill, we forget Diggs is a game breaker. And he's not just a possession receiver. And
he can ruin a defense's drive. Yep. Like if you're on 3rd and 13 and the defense is
absolutely
into it, and then Diggs just gets them 14 yards and resets the first down. That's how good he's been all year.
100%. And he's a gamer. This guy's not. I don't think he's going to disappear in this game. I don't think the Chiefs will either. But I have Buffalo for. I just think that if Mahomes has a healthy foot, I'm probably calling this game like even. Just the way he was limping around, like say if it's that one play, it makes a difference. I really think, and I just think Buffalo's just playing better. I would be silly to say that Buffalo's not playing better. They've played better for 8 weeks. They've really, really looked good, and they've played good teams and stood up against them. But that being said, I'll bet against Mahomes, and it'll probably make me regret it.
How much? Because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, and this could be kind of like the wrap up on Buffalo and Kansas City.
Okay.
In the 2 playoff games Buffalo's played, they've averaged letting up 150 rushing yards. I know Kansas City doesn't necessarily always focus on the run, but with Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, with Williams having the game he had last week, a pretty good game, like how much does that have to play in? Like maybe does Kansas City focus on the run early a little more, because it's shown in these playoffs you can run on that Bills defense.
And on it, that's been their weakness all year. You could run on Buffalo all year, and it is an odd thing, and you can't really. It's one of these things. It's like we see a lot of teams give up a lot of passing yards, but they don't give up a lot of points. But Buffalo absolutely can be gouged by the run, and we don't really know. Like that's a great question. I think that Kansas City could run on this team, but what I worry about though is Buffalo doesn't care, so to speak. I think they would love it every time Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the ball in his hands. I think they would gladly give that up. So I think they would give up 200 yards rushing to make Kansas City work for it and to keep it out of Mahomes' hands. So I don't know if that's part of the game plan or if there's a weakness there. You might be right. I mean, does Kansas City just all out run on them for 300 yards and get out of here? I think you're totally right about that. And I could never really put my finger on why Buffalo, especially early in the year, Buffalo would get gouged. I mean, they gave up a ton of rushing yards, but then when you watch them, even last week, like they make solid tackles. They like to go for the ball. Like they can force turnovers. So I guess I would say that Buffalo doesn't want to get ran on, but it takes probably 2 to 3 times as many runs to get the same yardage as the passing game. So that's 2 more chances to poke the ball out to try and get a turnover, to not have Mahomes throw it. So yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and we saw it in the Super Bowl last year. The running game was the difference for Kansas City. Andy Reid's smarter than I am, so I think it's very possible. And then you take off the top. So that could be the answer. It's going to be interesting. I think these are 2 great matchups. I don't think I don't think any of the 4 teams would be a shocker. I really don't. I think they're 4 really good teams. Tampa Bay is probably the biggest shocker, but if you watch them the last 5 weeks and they got Tom Brady, like it's not crazy. I think that's the game that I think between the two, Green Bay should win that game. Like they're supposed to win that game. As to where
if you had to pick,
I think Kansas City and Buffalo is more like nobody's going to walk out of there, embarrassed, so to speak. But it is something to watch out for with Hilaire being back. But coming back off an injury,
right?
That doesn't always work. I personally, me, I hate running backs. I don't actually hate them, people. It's a joke in the network. But the Bills don't even care. Like they don't even try to run the ball. I don't know if that'll be. I don't even know if it'll be a factor. They might both just sling it. Because their best weapon is both their quarterback's arms.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, man. I like the thought. Now, does the running game become screen passes?
Right.
There's a good chance.
It makes me question because like time of possession, that's been one of the biggest things when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, especially. Like I think if Buffalo can significantly hold the ball longer than Kansas City, that gives them the best chance to win. Now, at the same time, the defense has to do it because I forget, it was one of their final regular season games that Kansas City had. Like they still only had the football like 25 or 24 minutes, but they still dropped like 30, 34 points. Like that's the thing, that even at the end of the day, you can do so many of these things, but that team could still drop 30 even on their worst day. And I think it was some crazy stat too. Like, I don't know if you saw it, Jeff. I forget what it is, but like, there's some stat, like in his career losses, the lowest that Mahomes has scored in a game is like 31.
Oh, like, it's crazy. No,
it's crazy.
This team scores so many points. Yeah, they're obviously. I don't think that like, Kansas City is like showed signs of weakness or anything. I just happen to think the Bills are playing better right now with a dinged up Mahomes. I don't think Mahomes from week 1 is worse, but the fact that everybody is kind of starting to lean towards the Bills means Kansas City might blow them out of the water. And we know how these games are. A ball bounces the wrong way. Next thing you know, you lose by 30. It's really going to be crazy. But, and see, sometimes, though, I think that works against the team. Like we saw Indianapolis go to Buffalo, and the biggest mistake they made was they tried to keep the ball out of Buffalo's hands. But I think they played so tight that they missed opportunities in the red zone. And then Buffalo – we saw the biggest mistake they made. Indianapolis held the ball the whole first half, played a perfect first half. Buffalo gets the ball with, I think, less than 2 minutes or right at 2 minutes left in the half, and they go down and score a touchdown. So, that theory for Indianapolis was the reason they lost that game. I mean, so I don't know maybe if either one of these teams even tries that. This might be a shootout. It might be a 45 to it might be a college looking football game because I think that backfires on you a lot. I really do. Because I think it changes your mentality. You know what I mean? As far as like just the cadence and your quarterback and your timing and just even getting plays from the sideline. Like I've seen that happen as an Ohio State fan. There's games where we tried to slow it down and it just totally screwed up the synergy of the offense because everybody's standing around and it just messed up the rhythm. So I think both these teams might just play their game and hope that if you get this far by playing your game, I hate when a team tries to change it. Because then you just have nothing but regrets then. Right. Like, why did we do that? Why? Like if the Buffalo Bills come out and try to run the ball, I think it's a mistake. Just like I think the Indianapolis made a mistake doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be, and if there's one thing to really watch out for in these games, it's the coaching that you have. Sean McDermott has proven to be a very good coach in Buffalo. Andy Reid, of course, is Andy Reid. Matt LaFleur has vastly improved. Like anyone in that organization would tell you from year 1 to year 2, the grasp that him and Rodgers have together, the chemistry that they have is significantly ahead of what it was the year before. And Bruce Arians, like the funny quote he gave, like, sometimes I just let Tom coach him out there, but it's a legitimate thing. That give and take between a coach and a quarterback is so critical. And you look at all 4 of these teams, these are arguably the 4 best teams in terms of that this season, the give and take of when the coach handles it versus when the quarterback You just let the quarterback do their
Totally
thing.
agree. The relationship between a quarterback and coach is the difference in all these games. That's a great point. So, so for the record, we got you got Green Bay and Kansas City, correct? In the Super Bowl. And I've got Green Bay and Buffalo, and we have no idea how they're going to get there. So which means it's going to be Tampa Bay, Kansas City. I don't even. But the good news about the Super Bowl this year, no bad matchups. There's plenty of storylines. the off the ball crew will have plenty to talk about. There's no downside, to this game. So I want to thank Jerg for coming on and talking about this. We wanted to do a quick show and get you guys ready for the big games this afternoon. It's a lot of fun. So Jerg, what do you got coming up this week, man? What are you working on?
So I'm going to be working on a new hockey article over the next coming days. A fun little idea that popped in my head. I was talking to Jeff about it prior to the show. I was just scrolling on social media and I find a post and it's like, there's my next idea right there. So an article within the next coming days. My most recent one came out, I think, a little over a week ago at this point, the Fall of Champions. And I'll say championships will be in the theme of this new article as well. So I can't wait to write it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Go check out everybody's work, Off the Ball Network. Everybody, we're working real hard and putting out a lot of good stuff. We got a big Super Bowl week plan coming up. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of content coming. First of all, of course, thank Jerg. Thank everybody for watching and listening. Go check out Jeff Needs Sports, Facebook. Find me on Twitter. Find me everywhere. It's awesome. You guys are great. Appreciate you listening. Enjoy the games today and be kind to each other.